but I've been anointed king.
Did you really think you could just come into my house and take what is mine? I am the prophet, and I am the king. I do not fear you, but me should fear.
Hey brothers and sisters, welcome back to the Behavior Revolution Scriptures. In our last episode, we dealt with the priest wars, what was going on between these feuding clans of Levitical priests, the sons of Aaron, and the lines that were involved, and just the wicked behavior because of this mafia, bullying, abusing the privilege, abusing the system that Yahusha had set up. Just disgusting, wicked behavior. And of course, Yahusha comes along through this random guy, man of Elohim, and says, you're done with this line, done with this priesthood. I'm going to do something different. So as you can see here in the picture, Samuel's working very closely with Eli, the high priest. His mother made him some special robes so that he looked apart and could do his job. And you've got these wicked men up here that are taking advantage of the system. They're trying to come on to all the women, trying to take them back, and, sexual relations and all sorts of things near the tabernacle. It's all going on. So today we're going to go into the life of Samuel a little bit more, and how Samuel hones his craft, how he gets his relationship with Yahusha. So Sam listens. He listens. And this is pretty phenomenal where we're going to go today, guys, because this relates to every single one of us about our ability or willingness to listen and what that really means. So Sam listens. Let's go. We're into chapter 3. So young Samuel served Yahusha by helping Eli the priest, who was almost blind by that time. In those days, Yahusha hardly ever spoke directly to people, and he didn't appear to them in dreams very often either. Very sad, dark time of falling away and apostasy, just like we went through the Judges. Yahusha didn't talk to anybody very much. He couldn't come close because it was such darkness and uncleanliness. If he had come close, he would have frackled them up. So he didn't have much to do with them. Didn't appear to them in dreams very often either. Dreams were the usual way for Yahusha to communicate in ancient times, but this was a dark time in Yisrael. The people had fallen far away from Yahusha and weren't prone to paying attention to him. So, Yahusha withheld his instructions and his response to their requests. And it's no different today. Where is he? Why doesn't he do this? Why doesn't he do that? You're not coming close. Not invited, not wanted, not interested. People don't want to obey what he says or get to know him or draw close to him. So why should he draw close to them? Yahusha withheld his instructions and his response to their requests, and it's no different today. So because Yahusha's communication with Yisrael was so rare, it would be a major surprise if he suddenly broke his silence and spoke to someone, wouldn't it? And who did he choose? Yeah? Who did he choose? Just like today. Doesn't talk to many people directly. People say that he does now. We have that ability, an open portal on our hearts. But who's going in there, listening and doing it? Who's having that relationship? Who's Yahusha going to use? But one night, Eli was asleep in his room, and Samuel was sleeping in the sanctuary where the Ark of the Blood Covenant Witness was kept. Probably in the set apart place, not right next to the Ark itself. Alright? Sure he wasn't cuddled up next to the Ark, because that would have been illegal. And before the lamps went out, this is just an indication of how long it took. Before the lamps went out, because an olive oil lamp would go out after a few hours, if the wick was not adjusted. So before the lamps went out, the lamps hadn't gone out yet, Yahusha called out to Samuel, "Sam! Hey Sam, wake up!" "I'm here," Samuel answered, jumping up and running over to Eli, saying, "Here I am. What's up, my master?" "I didn't call you," Eli answered. "Go back to bed, boy." And Samuel went back to sleep. And again, Yahusha called out to him, "Sam! Oi, Sam!" So Samuel got up and went to Eli. "Here I am. What you want?" "Son, I didn't call you. Now go back to sleep." There he is. "I didn't call you. What are you talking about? Go back to sleep." The text actually says in Hebrew that Sam was sleeping in the ◕ not far from the ark. Many think this means that Samuel was actually sleeping in the front compartment of the sanctuary, set apart place, where the menorah, table of showbread, and the incense altar sat. While that should never be the case, it's very possible, especially considering the rather lax priestly protocols during this era. However, it is far more likely that little Samuel was sleeping in one of the many chambers that had been erected in and around what amounted to the courtyard area of the tabernacle. In any case, the point of the narrator saying that Sam was near the ark served an important purpose in the story, as we'll now see, because sometime during the night, Samuel is awoken when he distinctly hears a voice calling out his name. When Yahusha is present in his earthly dwelling place, he hovers over the ark, with the mercy seat as his figurative footstool. And even though Yahusha can do anything or speak anywhere at any time, it was important for the writer to tell us that Samuel was near enough to the ark where Yahusha was to make it plausible that Samuel could hear him calling. Yeah? Because Yahusha can't come close in this dark time unless it's on top of his blood sprinkled ark. And we don't know how long it had been since the ark had been sprinkled with blood or anything like that. In fact, no one could even look at the ark except once a year. So it's very lax protocol going on here. It's a very grey area of what was going on. Samuel wasn't officially a priest. He shouldn't have even been sleeping in the set apart place. Definitely wouldn't have been in the most set apart place. But, you know, we just don't know because anything goes right back here. Anyway. So he's calling out to Samuel. Samuel thinks it's Eli. And Eli's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Go back to bed." Yahusha had not, and why is this? Because Yahusha had not spoken to Samuel before. So Samuel didn't recognize his voice. Fair enough. Yahusha had never spoken to Samuel before. Samuel's only 5 or 6 years old, possibly a tiny bit older. So he didn't recognize his voice. Samuel was young and not yet at an age of accountability. Eli seems to have been somewhat negligent in teaching Samuel anything about spiritual matters, except for tradition and customs and rituals. Samuel knew that Yahusha existed, but didn't know him. But that was all about to change. There's a difference between knowing that Yahusha exists and actually knowing him. How long did we all know about Yahusha? Even if we just knew about a creator and believed in a creator. How long did we live thinking we knew? And definitely knowing about him, but not really knowing him. This is the process, guys. There's a big difference between knowing about him and getting to know him intimately. And many don't want that because of the pain. The pain of the purifying, the heat, the process, the training process to get close to him. So he tells him to go back to bed. Eli tells Samuel to go back to bed. But when Yahusha called out his name for a third time, Samuel went to Eli again and said, "Here I am. What do you want?" "What do you keep calling me for, if you don't want me?" And Eli finally realized that it must have been Yahusha who was speaking to Samuel. So he said, "Go back and lie down, and if someone speaks to you again, answer, 'I'm listening, Yahuwah. What do you want me to do?'" I'm listening, Yahuwah. What do you want me to do? So once again, Samuel went back and laid down. Yahusha then stood beside Samuel and called out as he'd done before. Sam, hey Sam, wake up. I'm listening, Samuel answered. What do you want me to do? Here we go. I'm going to do something in Yisrael that will blow everyone's brains out, Sam. It'll shock everyone who hears about it. I'm going to punish Eli and his family, just as I promised, because Eli knew that his sons refused to respect me and were insulting and hurting everyone, and he let them get away with it. Even though I said I would punish his family forever. Even though I said I would punish his family forever, he still let them get away with it. Remember what they were doing out there, shagging all the women, stealing all the food, abusing and bullying and, I warned Eli that sacrifices or offerings could never make things right again. His family has behaved way too disgusting for that now. Interesting about the fact that there's no sacrifices or offerings, which this family is in charge of. That's the whole foundation of the sacrificial system. In order to bridge the gap, in order to mend the relationship, come close to Yahusha. And Yahusha's saying there is no sacrifice or offering that could make things right. There is no sacrifice able to atone for intentional crimes against Yahusha or blaspheming, assaulting, the Ruach of Yahusha, as we see mentioned in the later texts. Someone who directly stands in Yahusha's face and abuses him and tells him what he is and then walks away. There's no sacrifice. Very rarely, most people don't turn from that. There's no coming back from that. They leave, they walk away from Yahusha, blaspheming, assaulting the Ruach. That's why it says it's unforgivable. Well, as we know, Yahusha's blood, unlike the sacrificial system, Yahusha's blood can forgive any crime. We know that. So clearly, if there is an unforgivable crime, a blasphemy of the Spirit, then that's coming from the person's end, not from Yahusha's end. Yeah. So preparation was underway to make Sam Yahusha's official earthly messenger. So this little kid's got to be trained. And you and I have both been through enough training. You and I have all been through enough training now to know what he's in for. If he's going to be a mouthpiece for Yahusha, what he's in for, what he's got to be trained in, what he's got to know about Yahusha, He's preparing Sam to be his earthly messenger, a mouthpiece and a judge over Israel. He would have to grow up fast now. And we all had to do that. It's time to grow up. Take responsibility for everything. Every single facet, no matter what age you are. It's time to grow up. When you come into Yahusha, you grow up bloody fast. Because immaturity is useless, Yahusha works with you for a time through your immaturity, but after a while he starts putting the hammer down, the rod of chastisement. He's measuring his bride. Remember the measuring stick? He's measuring. How do we fare in his measuring? So, time to grow up. Samuel had learned of Yahusha's intent to severely harm Eli and his family, and it must have frightened little Samuel terribly, especially since it was all so open-ended. How the punishment would happen, and when it would occur, and how Samuel might be affected by it all, was all left unanswered. It seems that the first thing that the boy who didn't know Yahusha learnt was that Yahusha will punish wickedness among his own people, and especially among those set apart to serve him. Yahusha will punish wickedness among his own people, even more so than he will punish out in the world. Because they're ignorant, and if they're not ignorant, they're willfully disobedient and they've chosen their fate. Yahusha is punishing his bride because he wants a certain standard. If you're going to be here, this is serious business, guys. We've got a wedding to get to. We've got a standard to meet, a process to get through. And if you're going to be here, there's no stuffing around, you know. So if you're feeling like the fun's over and much is expected of you, well, wake up. It is. Much is expected of you. Much is expected to those who much is given, you know. So this is what Samuel's about to find out. And this is the first thing, and he's only 6 or 7 years old. This is the first thing he hears from Yahusha. This is his first impression of Yahusha. You know, he'll punish wickedness. And this would shape the way he behaved his whole life. This fear that he would have had inside him. If he was wicked, if he was disobedient, oh, I know I'll be punished. It's just I just know it because I've seen it from a young boy. I would imagine that this event had much to do with shaping Samuel's life. Just said that. His determination to be obedient to Yahusha at all costs. So, he just heard Yahusha's voice saying that he's going to punish Eli and his sons. And this is the guy he's living with, dependent upon. So the next morning, Sam got up and opened the doors to the tabernacle, afraid to tell Eli what Yahusha had told him. But Eli said, "Samuel, my boy, come here." "Here I am," Sam answered. "What did Elohim say to you?" "Tell me everything. Remember, Elohim will punish you terribly if you don't tell me the truth." So Samuel told Eli everything, the whole spiel from Yahusha. And afterwards, get this, Eli said, "Well, he is Yahuwah, and he will do what's right." And this is very much what we're going to talk about in this episode today. Eli's response, Eli's life, really, his behavior towards everything. He goes, "Well, Yahuwah's Yahuwah. He'll do what's right." It's very passive language, isn't it? "Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. It's all right. Doesn't matter. Chill out. She'll be right, mate." Did Eli imagine if you were given this message. Imagine one of your children or your close friend or whatever gave you a message that said, "I'm going to punish, all this that Yahusha said to Samuel." Imagine that was passed on to you. From a reputable source, not just having a go at you, but really serious. This is from Yahusha. This is going to happen to you. How would your response be? Mine wouldn't be this. Would yours be this? Did Eli fall on his knees and repent, or just fob it off? Does it look like he even feels anything or cares? Pay attention to this passive behavior because Yahusha hates it. We're going to talk about this word passive a little bit later on. But this is where it comes up. He's even been given, we know Yahusha's character. We know him. Somebody cries out for repentance. There might be punishment still, but he will forgive. He will, A, B, C, D, E. You might have to go through a process, but why do you think he is bringing on this punishment in the first place? Because look, he knows Eli's heart. He'll work with people who are immature. He'll work with people who have flaws. He'll work with all of us to get us to a place. But if we don't, if we dig our heels in after a while, get stuffed. There's other people I need to work with, You got to realize how serious this is, guys. Are you passive? Remember that question. It's going to come up again. So, que sera, sera. That's Eli's response. And as Sam grew up, Yahusha helped him and made everything he said come true. Yahusha helped him and made everything he said come true. Are you having this experience where things you say come true? You can have it. Do you want to go in that far? Do you want to listen and say? You got to say it beforehand. You can't say that. "Oh, I knew that was going to happen." "Yeah, sure you did, mate. Yeah. Did you say anything?" No. You got to say it beforehand. You got to stand on it and wait. Yeah. Risk being wrong, but you're never wrong if you heard Yahusha's voice, You just have that experience. Sam grew up. Yahusha helped him and made everything he said everything he said come true. This experience is available for everyone. Sam didn't have a portal on his heart, did he? We do. And from the town of Dan in the north to the town of Beersheba in the south, everyone in the country knew that Samuel was truly Yahusha's prophet, because he often appeared to Samuel at Shiloh and told him what to say. And then Samuel would speak to the whole nation of Israel. The whole nation. So, Samuel, we're jumping in time now. Samuel by now is a young adult, and Yahusha's proving that he's real. Yahusha's proving that Samuel's hearing, because he makes everything that Samuel says, he gives it to him to start with, and then makes it happen. Like he did with Moses, like he did with so many other people, like he's doing with us today. Samuel kept growing, not just physically maturing, his ear for Yahusha's voice was developing. And the boy who didn't know Yahusha began to know him intimately. And every word that Yahusha gave to Samuel, he passed along obediently. That's part of the process too. Every word Yahusha gave him, he passed along obediently. He did it. And so, in time, all Yisrael, from Dan to Beersheba, knew about Samuel's reputation. What he said would actually happen, and they grew to trust him. Further, we see another very important development. For the past 3 centuries or so, Yisrael had no common national leader. They had no national leader to no one. No one person. For over 300 years now, since Joshua died. Priests were supposed to take over, but they're now a joke. We saw that last episode, the priest wars. What's going on there? They're like the politicians today, more interested in trying to keep their jobs than actually do anything useful. So that's the state of Israel. And they had no leader to look to. In the era of the judges, they looked to their own tribal leaders and the occasional shofet judge who Yahusha raised up to deliver a tribe or two from trouble or oppression. The fact that Yisrael would begin to accept a nationwide leader in Samuel was paving the way for them to also accept a national king. Because remember, don't forget the context of these kingdom books. We're being introduced to what Yahusha wants for his bride. A unified bride, a unified, listening to him, their king. That's what he wants for them. But we had the priesthood, and the priesthood had become lukewarm, passive. The priesthood had become passive priesthood. Let's go into this, because that's about, I think we've pretty much finished the story for today. It's just to show us that this is how Sam heard Yahusha's voice, clung to his voice, and Yahusha proved through him that he's still there. He's still hanging around. He's still speaking. He's still moving. And someone was willing to listen to him. Let's talk about being lukewarm or passive. Some time had passed since Yahusha's curse was pronounced upon Eli and his family. How much time, we don't know. But probably only a year or two since Samuel was still a child. We must be careful, and yet this behavior is still going on. That's why Yahusha said, I've warned them, and they're still not changing. I mean, the random guy who came in last episode and just told him, you're done, you're fired, everything. Wouldn't you fall on your knees then? No, I can change, I can do this. No, it's been years. Samuel's still a boy. No change in the behavior. Still abusing the system. We must be careful, though, not to mischaracterize Eli as a thoroughly wicked man, like his sons were, and completely worthy of destruction, because he was not. And that's why Yahusha did not destroy him. So let's not go too far in our judgment of Eli, because he was not a wicked man. Eli was a decent man who loved Yahusha, but he was weak. Take this in, guys. This isn't the villain. His sons were worthless. Scripture says that sons were worthless. Scripture never says Eli was worthless. Yahusha was working with him for a time, obviously. But Eli was a decent man who loved Yahusha. But he was weak, not strong enough for the challenging and critical role as Yisrael's high priest. So why did he have that role? A role which he somehow acquired, but probably should not have. Because, as we saw last video, he was not of the Yahusha authorized family line of the high priest. Remember the chart we went through? About how the priest would jump from son to son? Eli's lack of leadership allowed his sons to run rampant over Yahusha's people and even defile the sanctuary. And further, his weakness and lack of backbone stopped him from doing what was right according to Yahusha's instructions. Interpret this for yourself, men and women. Defiling the sanctuary, abusing people, hurting people. Take this into your life. Are you this person? Are your children these people? You know, are they still of an age where you can affect the way they behave? Or are they too old and you just got to trust Yahusha? That's for you to decide. But we all got to look at the scripture and go, how's this affecting me? How does this relate to me? You know, his lack of leadership allowed him to run rampant over Yahusha's people, defile the sanctuary. His weakness and lack of backbone stopped him from doing what was right according to Yahusha's instructions, especially in the face of stiff opposition and a lukewarm Yisraelite population. Lukewarm. Undoubtedly, Eli had inherited, not created. He stepped into this. It was already like this. He didn't create it like this. It was already like this. He'd inherited a dysfunctional priesthood, along with 12 dysfunctional tribes to oversee. But there is also no evidence that he did any more than to passively man his post, enjoy the honours and privileges of his lofty office, and abide by the many questionable, man-made traditions that developed and now existed and operated in place of Yahusha's authorized sacrificial rituals and worship protocols. Understand that? He wasn't necessarily doing anything outwardly wrong. He just inherited this role, or took it over, whatever went down, and kept continuing it the way it's always been. You know, continuing the status. He just manned his post. This is how it's been done. We'll continue to do it that way. So in that aspect, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just passively manning his post. But remember, this is a time of great darkness. And what was the result of that darkness? I'm not going to scroll up, but what was the result? Yahusha didn't come close. He didn't speak to anybody back here, except finally Samuel. The result of their lukewarm, backslidden, apostate behavior was that Yahusha wasn't there. In a nutshell, the priesthood got lukewarm, lazy, and abandoned what they'd been instructed to run things their own way. There it is again. The priesthood got lukewarm, lazy, and abandoned what they'd been instructed. They were still holding on to the books, the documents that Moses had written. You know? Abandoned them to do things their own way. Let's talk about this today, guys. Let's push this point home, because this word passive got my interest. Passive. Why? Because my whole life I've been a very passive person. Passive aggressive. Furious inside myself. Whatever. I'll just judge the hell out of you inside myself and smile my face. Very fake. You know? Passive aggressive. So we're going to look at the word passive, because that's the word that jumped out at me. Passive, what does that mean? Just in the English dictionary, it means accepting or allowing what happens or what others do without active response or resistance. She'll be right, mate. Whatever will be, will be. Case there are, whatever. Oh, that'd be right. Yeah, no, yeah, whatever. Yeah, well, we'll just no active response. Not outwardly anyway. You might be fuming on the inside, but you don't do anything about it. You know? That's passive. Accepting or allowing what happens. Just accept what happens, or what others do to you or to themselves without an active response. You don't do anything about it. Simple, yeah? Passive person doesn't do anything, doesn't do what they're meant to do. So, are we just showing up, manning our post like Eli did, continually doing everything the same, day in, day out with no inspiration, having our own way? A better question is just lingering in the rain, not making up our minds about anything, trying to say the right things, thinking we're so clever and that no one can really see what we're doing or thinking. Is this really being at our post anyway? Watching and waiting? Is that really genuinely being at your post? Standing at the gate, standing on the wall as a watchman? Natsura means watchman, watching, waiting for Yahusha to move, not just for his return, but watching in your day for him to move and wanting to be a part of it. Is just passively doing the same thing? Drone, drivel, in, out, every day, go to sleep, get up, go to sleep. Is that really waiting? Is that really manning your post anyway? Was Eli really manning his post? If it's passive? Knowing what we know about Yahusha and how passionate he is about everything he does? We've talked about this. Look at all the things he created. You know, his sense of humor, his creativity. Is he passive in anything he does? No, if he's silent, he's actively silent. He's not just resting on his laurels, not just, forgotten. No, he's actively shut up for a reason. Everything he does is active. So, is living a passive existence in Yahusha even in Yahusha? You can't say you're in Yahusha if you're just living a passive thing, swill, based on traditions and what was done yesterday, yeah? Do we really get away with anything we've done? Do you, have you, will you ever get away with anything you've done? Look at Moses, Aaron, Joshua, and compare them with Eli. Which behavior are we? Hot, cold, or lukewarm? Are you having trouble making up your mind whether you're hot, cold, or lukewarm? Can't make up your mind about things? You know what you are. We all know what we are. You hot, you cold, or you lukewarm? Passive. I just go with the flow. Yeah, this is what'll happen. Poor little downtrodden me. You're just passive, waiting for the next bad thing to, can't accept what's going on around, can't accept what you've done, can't, won't, We saw Samuel listening intently to Yahusha's voice. And as we discovered in Deuteronomy, to Shema, listen, doesn't just mean to passively hear something, like you can hear the birds, you can hear the traffic, you can hear things. That's not what Shema or listen means. No. It means to actively follow through by doing what's instructed. Actively follow, the opposite to passive, the opposite to lukewarm. Actively follow through by doing what's instructed. My sheep hear my voice. And I think this is the big problem in the bride. Lukewarmness. We're going to go into it a bit more, but Yahusha spoke about this in Revelation. Because people who are cold, they make up their mind. Don't want this. I'm not going any further. See you later. Done. They've made up their mind. Cold. Their love's gone cold. They've gone. They made up their mind at least. And those who are hot are running it, going for it. The lukewarm thing. Those who say they're hot, but they're not behaving hot. Not listening and doing. And this has got nothing to do with anybody around you, guys. This is between you and Yahusha. My sheep hear my voice. You have only one person to prove yourself to. And you can't fool him. You might have thought you've fooled everybody. You haven't. You might think you can fool people. You can't fool Yahusha. There is no maybe or doubt or sometimes about Yahusha's statement, my sheep hear my voice. Not maybe they hear my voice, sometimes they hear my voice. No, my sheep hear my voice. He just makes statements like this and stands on them because they're the truth. You can hear his voice. But I can't hear. I don't know if I can hear. I can't make up my mind if that was his voice. I can't. My sheep hear my voice. The problem is not the transmission from his end. But are we actively following through by doing what's instructed? If we are his, we hear him. And he tells us what to do moment by moment, always making a way of escape, a solution, a relief. If we will but listen to him and receive his living words into us, the light will always win over the darkness that seeks to swallow us up all day, every day. Have you faced that about the enemy, about the darkness out there? It wants to swallow you up all day, every day. But if you are clinging to his voice moment by moment, you will win. He makes a way out every time. So which do you want? Listen or ignore? Ignore him. Listening makes us active and hot. Listening makes us... How do I be hot for Yahusha? How do I be passionate for Yahusha? Listen. Listen. And listen doesn't just mean hear random noises. Listen means hear and do. The Hebrew concept of belief is not just happily holding something in your head. No, it's mean do it. Shema. Listen. Do. How do you be hot for Yahusha? How do you make it? You listen and do. That's where you start. Listen and do. Listening makes us active and hot. Ignoring makes us lukewarm and passive about our lives. Ignoring Yahusha makes you passive and lukewarm about your life. 𝗓𝒨𝒨. And if we continue this wicked behavior, our love will be extinguished completely, leaving us stone cold. Many of us are on a precipice, a fork in the road, guys. Which way are you going to go? Lukewarm. Which way are you going to go? Hot or cold? Listen and do makes you hot. Ignoring, having your own mind, your own way, over time makes you cold. And your love goes cold. Samuel listened and became one of Yahusha's greatest mouthpieces on earth. And there's a scripture there from Revelation. Lukewarm no more, because you are either lukewarm and neither hot nor cold. This is why he was going to vomit you out of his mouth. I will vomit you out of my mouth because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold. He would rather you be cold, cut off, and get lost than be standing here pretending. Standing here declaring things, but having your own way, humoring everybody and having your own way. He would rather you be cold, cut off, and piss off than be lukewarm. Because at least you've made up your mind. Yeah? Look at his emissaries when they walked the earth. He came along and said, follow me. It's a yes or a no. Yeah, I'll follow you. But they don't move. Well, what does that say? Yeah, I'll follow you tomorrow. No, follow me. That's what he wants. Follow me, moment by moment. In the same place that Yahusha speaks of his hatred for lukewarm behavior in Revelation, he states that he comes knocking on the door of our hearts, which he can easily do since there's an open portal there. He can easily knock on our hearts moment by moment now to awaken us, get our attention, discipline, chastise, flog, goad, bring about a change so you are no longer the person you once were. That's the whole point. So that you are no longer the person that you once were. Are you still trying to hold on to little pieces of who you think you are, things that you felt special and sentimental, nostalgic about? That's got to die. You have to change so you are no longer the person you once were. Does Yahusha need SWAT to open your door? Stubborn, hard heart. This is an interesting thing about being passive though. Not doing anything. The bride often mistakes an end of strife, or arguing, an end of arguing, or making things happen of the self. The bride often mistakes all those things ending with a lack of actively doing something, as though we just get pushed around. So just because you decide to wait, just because there's an end of strife happening, just because you're wanting peace, just because you're not wanting to go out and do things of yourself, is that being passive? Or is there a difference? As though we just get pushed around, suffering aimlessly, while everyone around us has their own way with our emotions, resources, and time. Is that really the case? Does shutting up and waiting on Yahusha mean giving up and not doing anything? Not at all. It's actually the opposite, because it's getting the flesh out of the way. Our thoughts, our opinions, how many opinions are there? Desires and wants, getting all that out of the way, becoming actively aware of what Yahusha is doing around us. Are you actively aware of what Yahusha is doing around you and through you? Making sure the only words we speak are carefully chosen and in line with what Yahusha wants. Do you behave like this? Do you behave like this? Or you're out there trying to make things happen? Oh, I don't want to be useless. I don't want to be passive. I've got to make things happen. No. Actively doing something. Even if you're waiting on Yahusha, even if you're waiting for a breakthrough, even if you're waiting, and listening and shutting, even if you're shutting up, it's active. You've made up your mind based on what Yahusha said to you, or based on the scripture. You've made up your mind. And if you make a mistake, if you heard wrong, get back up, try again. You know, we're not perfect. We don't always hear the right voice, but you get in there and you're actively having an experience. You know, this is where you got to start. What if you've been the one who's been doing the using? What if you've been the user and the abuser and the scammer and the leech? What if it's not happening to you, but you've been doing it to others? What if that's you? Where do you start? Where do you start when you know you've blown it, wrecked everything, and you feel down, lost, and broken? Finally seeing your behavior the way Yahusha does. Have you come to that place yet? What do you do when you're down in that place? Finally seeing yourself the way you are. Do you make excuses? Do you blame others? Try and lift yourself back up again? How's that gone in the past? Did it work? This place that you're in, this being down and facing who you are and how you've behaved and how you've lived, this experience you're going through is called death. And Yahusha, get this, Yahusha is very happy to see you go through it. So don't be crying and looking for sympathy. Look at, oh, I've fallen over, I've scraped my leg, oh, this, that. There's calamity, there's hardship in my life. I've got to cough up with the good. I've got to. Yes, yeah. And Yahusha is very happy to see you go through this. Yahusha is very happy to see you die. And you know what? So is everyone else around you, because they've been bloody putting up with you. So don't be looking around for sympathy because of what you're feeling inside yourself. Everybody's been feeling it because of you, you know? So face it. Stay down. Where was I? This experience is called death. Yahusha is very happy to see you go through it, and so is everyone else around you. So that you die. Die to who you are and stop that behavior. That's all anybody wants. That's all Yahusha wants, for you to stop that behavior. Which behavior? You know which behavior. There's lots of them probably. Stop those behaviors. So instead of making excuses, trying to make light of the situation, brush it under the rug, stay down. Stay down. Let all the realization of the guilt and shame and wickedness really sink in. Stay in it for a while. That filth that you've lived in and things that you've done for so long, stay in it for a while. Let all the realization of the guilt and shame and wickedness let it really sink in. Not just some surface passive realization. Oh, what have I been told now? All this fake bullshit. Let it sink in who you really are. Go and get depressed and let it sink in. Face it. Face it. Explore it. Dissect it. Discover all this. Why would you want to stay in this depression? Why would you want to stay in this swill? Why would you want to be even exploring it and dissecting it and thinking about it? Why? So that you can discover all the sneaky avenues, cracks and crevices it seeps into you through. Explore what you've been and done and think it long and hard. Let it sink in so that you can look and find out where it's the thoughts. It's all thoughts. Find out where it gets you all the time and how it gets you, and bog all those cracks up, block it all up like they do on the walls and the cracks. Seal it all up. Cracks and crevices it seeps into you through, and block them all off. Block it all off. So stay in this place. If you're down and depressed and upset and facing yourself, stay in it and work it out. Why? Don't just fob it off, get back up and keep going like nothing's happened. No, face it. Make a change. Don't ever entertain such thoughts or imaginations anymore. Ignore them completely. They're not coming in ever again. Ever. This is where the bride has to die. Individually, she has to go to her death. She has to be down. This is not some high social, religious, happy dancing, movement where we come together and we're so happy and we talk about this. No, that's not what the bride's going through. Because the bride actually wants to make it. And the only way you make it is to die. When has death ever been pleasant? It's pleasant once you've already died and you're starting to come back up and he's moving through you. But while you're dying, it's not pleasant. So stop trying to make it pleasant. Face it. Look at all this stuff I wrote. Face it. Face it. All of it. Let it sink in who you are and what you've done. Stay in it for a while. So that you never, ever entertain it or go to it ever again. Into that vomit. A dog goes back to his vomit. Are you a dog? Then why are you swimming around in your own vomit? I'm telling you to swim around in it for now. If you're facing it, swim around in it. Have a good taste. You like it? You like how it makes you feel? You like how it turned you out in your life? Do you like it? Face it then. I'm not telling you to swim around in the wicked behavior. I'm telling you to swim around in the realization of it. Let it into you and let it burn. Because it's him. It's not demons that are pestering you because of who you've done, what you've done, where you've been and that's not demons pestering you. That's Yahusha bringing it to you, saying, you did that. Remember when you did this? Remember when you did that? And you say, yes, I did. Yes, I have. I've gone there. I've done it. I've said it. I've abused. I've used. You go there and you face it. Why? Why am I telling you to do all this? So that they're not coming in ever again. This is how you shut the door. You wake up when you wake up. There's no point crying over lost time. You wake up when you wake up. And you start when you start. And anyone that doesn't let you have it can well and truly get stuffed. Get stuffed, for want of a better word. They can well and truly get stuffed. Anybody that doesn't let you have your process and what you've been and done and gone through, when you wake up, you wake up. And anyone who doesn't, get stuffed. You want to go out onto your rooftop and shout that out? Go out and shout it out. Use more colourful language if you want to, if it helps. Get stuffed. You make it right with everyone. You need to make it right with make it right. Make it right. the best you can. But if they don't receive your apology, then let them have it and move on. Yahusha will deal with them. Inside yourself, get stuffed, you know? So how do you start? Why am I talking to you like this today? Because the whole bride is going through this. Not just me. The whole bride is going through this. And she doesn't know where to start. How to climb out of the swill. You know? This is how you start. Just like Samuel did. You start by listening. Once you've gone through this hot wash and you've had enough, once you've finally realized who you are and what you are, and you've had a good look at the swill that you're in and what it's done to you, how do you climb out of it? One thought at a time. You start listening, one thought at a time, one task at a time, proving your reputation with Yahusha. Just like a drug addict, just like people who go to AA, just like quitting anything in life. It's just another thing that we quit. And you ask any kind of junkie, it's moment to moment. Ask anybody who's been addicted to any substance, it's moment to moment. And you just say no to the next moment. And then say no to the next moment. And the next test, and the next temptation, and the next craving, and the next screaming of your flesh. You just say no to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And eventually you make it through a whole day. And you go to sleep. And you say no. And eventually you make it through a whole week. And you go on, and you go on, and you go on. And after a while you realize, I have been delivered. It's not just something that you say when you come out of the water. Because that's only when you've been legally delivered and you've been stamped with a new name. There's nothing delivered about you whatsoever when you come out of the water. As we all know. Because look what we're going through now. Look at all the filth that's got to come out of us. The process, the path, the training of deliverance takes time. And how long it takes is up to you. But this is how you get out of it. You just say no to the next one. The next temptation, the next trial. You say no and you choose Yahusha. Yeah? You start by listening one thought at a time, one task at a time, proving your reputation with who? Yahusha. Proving your reputation with Yahusha. This is between you and him. And he wants your undivided attention. And this is how you stay hot. And never allow your love to go cold through wickedness and lies ever again. This is how you allow your love never to go cold through wickedness and lies again. Listening to the accusing filth of Satan makes us makes our whole feeling drop. Our mood changes until our genuine love and kindness and compassion is extinguished. That's what's coming at you every day. Not only are you facing everything you're facing about what you've been and done, you're also getting tempted and taunted and harassed, pestered by this filth as well. See why only a small portion are going to make it, guys? Are you going to be one of them? Are you actively winning? Active, this is the word. Actively winning, not passive, not lukewarm. Actively winning. Even if it's actively shutting up, actively not doing anything in a situation, actively waiting on Yahusha, actively. You're actively doing something. And you ask anybody, the hardest thing to do often is nothing. Is to shut up. Is to wait, you know. Because if Yahusha tells you to go and open your mouth and say something and you don't, lukewarm. If Yahusha tells you to shut up, let them have it, stay out of it. And you go in there anyway and you spread your mouth, lukewarm. Your way. Lukewarm is your way. Having your way makes you lukewarm. And if you keep having your way, keep being lukewarm, you'll end up cold. Are you actively winning, knowing this is the way of his reign? And you are being trained into his royalty? Or have you given up, become lukewarm, indecisive, and a passive bitch of the enemy? Do you like being the enemy's bitch? You have been. You're a bitch. You're his bitch. Haven't you come running whenever he tells you? Haven't you listened to everything he says? Haven't you behaved everything he wants you to behave? Passed on all the messages of filth and wickedness and abuse that he's told you to pass on to everybody around you, friends, family, everybody? Aren't you his bitch? Or have you decided not to be? Well, good on you if you have, because that's where the bride has to come to. She has to come to that individually, because she's so sick of swimming around, licking the walls like that video said. Swimming around in her filth. Have you had enough of this existence? You don't have to have it. You just start by listening and doing. Listening and doing. And that is your anchor. That is how you get to know the frequency, the intimacy of his voice in your life. Listen and do. This is the opposite to what we see going on out there, because there's nothing showy about this. There's nothing, not in the beginning anyway, unless after a while he asks you to go and do something. But this is very inside, personal, quiet, depth, screaming inside yourself. This is where the bride is going, because Yahusha is knocking, pounding at the door of her heart, pleading to come in, to dine with her, sup with her, have intimate relationship with her. And what does it take to have that? This process. This is the only way. I'm happy to tell you, this is the only process. This is the only process I've seen anybody that I know that's genuine go through. And it's the only process that I've going through that's genuine. This is the only thing. And he's no respecter of persons. Everybody is going through this process of death. Death. Just like the caterpillar, you got to die. You got to shed all that. You got to be transformed, metamorphosized. Yeah? So that something better, something different comes forth. A different person with different behavior. That doesn't happen at your immersion. Happens a little bit. That happens afterwards when you start fighting. Are you ready to fight now? Or do you just want to be Satan's passive, filthy, a gutless slime and a worm and a skunk and a mongrel? You just want to be a gutless punt of a man or a woman? Are you ready to get a backbone? Are you ready to fight and be in this existence? In the rain, not just passively manning your post. Oh, I showed up, didn't I? Yeah, but look at you. Look at your behavior. Please. We'd rather you not show up if that's how you're going to be. This is the way Yahusha feels. Hot or cold. If you're going to be cold, piss off. If you're going to be lukewarm, piss off. Don't be in it. Go for it, guys. Stop being Satan's bitch.